Hi, welcome to my sporting show, Kavindu Sporting Times. Before start the show, I want to hit the like button and subscribe to my show. Now today on the show, we're going to talk about the situation. Now last video I also talked about situation in Sri Lankan cricket, but today on the show I'm going to talk about an individual who just tends to find his way on the wrong side by simply not know what to say in the right time. Now, of course, now let's start. Now, as we all know, the captain of the former captain Arjun Ranatunga is a very known player. He won the World Cup and gave the first World Cup title. Yeah, the spiritual leader. Great. But this is the problem. When you got that level of status, you got to be very careful what you are saying and what you are doing, because people expect you to be rather, respectful of things. But at the moment though, he is not clearly understanding the logic. For a senior player like him, it's important to be understood that you can't be a bull in the china shop on this. So let's get started on one of his complaints. First complaint, Arjun Ranatunga claims that Kumar Sangakkara and Mahela Jayawardene did not groom any players when they were playing. This is my question. Who the hell did he groom in his timeline? Look, grooming is different to something else. It's different leagues. Grooming has two stages. The first stage of grooming is that you personally go and find players. Then there is a second system of grooming where you have players coming into the team and you groom them. Now he did the first part, which is players came into the team and which he strengthened them up. But remember, there were certain times some certainly felt selections post the 1996 World Cup were extremely questionable. Maybe even his own captaincy. Yes, he won the World Cup in 1996. There were many players in that team could have been different leadership post that World Cup, which unfortunately he didn't do. He stayed as captain until the 1999 World Cup, which not only ruined his career, it certainly ruined the team's follow-up to the previous World Cup. But it's not to say he didn't do enough for the team. He saved the career of Muralidharan, of course. But the thing is, despite all that in mind, there is a general feel of he's overplaying his hand about his contribution. I mean, no player is perfect, nor he has been. He's not the most perfect captain. He made bad decisions in that World Cup that costed us that particular World Cup in 1999. Remember, a year prior to that World Cup, Sri Lanka won a tri-series in England, which included England and South Africa. But somehow in that World Cup, Sri Lanka couldn't go Super 6 and forward. That's how bad the tournament was. What was the reason? Lack of adaptability. They played with the same team majority as the 96 World Cup. That team would have worked in the subcontinent conditions, but that team did not work in England. And that was the reality. Fast forward 2 years, once he did retire, there was the next generation of players who took over from him. There was new leaders. But his accusation of not having new young players groomed retirement after Sangakkara Jayawardene is false. Players like Angelo Matthews, players like Chandimal, players like Akil Dhananjay, players like Tirimana, players like Tissara Pereira, I can go on and on and on. You can groom players, but if they don't perform consistently, that is not the fault of the mentor who grooms them. It's simple as that. Sometimes players do perform well, but it's the management that screws them over. It's just things like that. And one of those examples can be said about someone like Angelo Matthews. Now he performed exceptionally once he became captain. One time he averaged more than Virat Kohli in ODI cricket. In fact, he was in the top 5 rankings. But what really happened to his career? Fitness fell down overall, but his leadership was strong under his captaincy. Sri Lanka went on to beat Australia 3-0 in 2016. But look, some might say in Sri Lanka, but come on, who gave Sri Lanka a chance against a full-strength Australian team? They did, and everything in mind. Post Sangakkara Jayawardene retirement, Angelo Matthews did start to flourish as a captain through status by status. Defeats were natural. There was 2 key holes in the team that had to be filled. There were going to be certain losses. There were going to be transitions. The team should be prepared for that moment, accept the loss and move on, start winning. But the team did not prepare for that moment. Now, of course, to mention someone like Tilakaran Dilshan's particular place for the top order can also be said because of Sangakkara and Jayawardene. Remember, if Jayawardene as a captain did not promote or groom Dilshan's position as the opening position, what it could have been for Dilshan's career? He could have been a number 6 like Russell Arnold, forgotten from the from the list of winners. That's exactly. But now people know him as a winner. That's a thing. Of course, as many players you can groom, they got to perform. Some players didn't live up to the expectations. Post 2015, Lado Tirimana's career was a shambolic disaster, where he underperformed, completely didn't live up to his reputation, and he fell out of nick. To make things worse, Captain Angelo Matthews' fitness also started going down, and as he became unfit, little by little in terms of fitness. And then, what about Dinesh Chandimal? He became into an aggressive player, but in terms of his decision making, in terms of who will he be mentored by, made him pay the price dividendly and terribly. Valuable lesson that he should have learned is play your game, stop focusing mentored by others. And that's something in reality to be said. Now someone like Akhil Dhananjaya mysteriously didn't play for 3-4 years, which is crazy, but that he was very young when he came to the team. But right now in 2021, you can't accuse the two legends for not bringing players. They brought players into the team. They performed, but once they went away, these players showed their true colors. Lack of consistency sometimes, or maybe they lack the gut to lead in the right direction. Things like that. At the end of the day, 2021, as you can see, the disaster the Sri Lanka cricket team right now is in, you got to understand what can those two do. And right now, let's presume for a second, you bring Mahela Jayawardene as a coach for this team right now. What sort of a difference can he really do? When the selecting committee purposely selects a team that has no collective experience whatsoever, how can you win a game? You can coach players, but it's different when you go to perform on the field. That's what many people have to understand. At the end of the day, how things will end for a coach like him. People will call him, he underperformed, controversies will go that he didn't do well. And because of those things, whatever the effort if he did was a coach here right now would be undermined. Think about this. And also, I believe Arjun Rantham is a human being. He might feel rather jealous about the achievements that the younger generation achieve while what he hasn't achieved as a post-cricketing career. I mean, Kumar Sangakkara is head of the MCC. Mahela Jayawardene, coach of Mumbai Indians, winning IPL titles around the world, things like that. I mean, I get the pain he might feel, but you can't use personal grudges as a term to go against these players, because these players have certainly done so much for this country and for this team. And they played way more than they wanted to play. I mean, the risk was you play too long, you end your careers poorly. Of course, some might say things on that note. Now, what does the current team needs? They need a sense of direction. Now, as per new information, there's a new captain, new sheriff in town, Dasun Chanaka in town, new sheriff. The old sheriff had to run away because the bosses kicked him out once more. It seems like kicking out new captains are a regularity in this team. Since 2018, there have been 4 captains. I mean, it's a little bit insane right now thinking about this. 4 captains seems a little bit insane. And also, can I ask one more question? Why is someone like Lasith Malinga not in the team right now, who he is prepared to play? I mean, do you really want to drop someone like him? Really? I mean, for sake of fitness? I mean, you got to start thinking this team right now is in shambolic chaos. This is reality. You have senior players who are seasoned, who are talented, who are ready to perform. You got to back them no matter what the problem is. If you don't back them, there's no point. Imagine someone like Mavanatupattu who had so many ducks in a row beginning of his career. He could have been dropped. He could have been dropped from the history of the game forever and ever. But no, they banked on him. They had faith on him. He came back. He performed brilliantly. This is what this team needs right now. Bring your senior players who have failed reliever. Let them perform. And also, make the young players play with the senior players. That way, the young learn from the seniors, and maybe even the seniors might learn from the young. That's how you build a team. And also, decide on one captain, for God's sake. We have 4 captains now. One captain would be more than adequate by now, because a 5th captain is now more likely than losing $1 million in a casino right now. It's pretty safe bet. I'm sure that Dasun Chanaka might captain one more series and they might say, hey, he didn't do well. A 5th captain might come on the way. Just so I thought you should know that. Just so your fans should know that is very much a possibility. So on that note, I'm going to end the video. Thank you very much for joining me on the show.